was able to cross the paths with Scott, and that's what got me here to be with all of you, with Anya and with Scott here. So, it's a real privilege to be able to share a stage, microphone, food, and cannolis with all of you, and with Scott, and with Anya. Can't forget the cannolis, that's right. And just one more thing I want to mention. I know today there was a ceasefire agreement that was reached, and it would be inappropriate of me not to talk about this. I know there are a lot of thoughts happening. I've seen videos and pictures coming out of Gaza of people cheering and happy and dancing in the streets. And here I also see skepticism. Can we really trust this ceasefire? Well, I don't know what to make of it. I am not going to sit here and tell you I'm a geopolitical expert. But what I do know is that there is a phase in this so-called ceasefire where a reconstruction has to happen, and it will be determined by an international body. What I see here now is an opportunity for everybody to act and say, what do you want Gaza to look like 5 years from now? And how can we make that a reality? And I think there is a big opening right now where we can have a fight in the government to say that it has to be a truly international cooperative effort to rebuild Palestine and to make it the city of tomorrow, but a real developed city, a human-oriented city, not a machine-oriented city. We can have that if we decide we want that, and we have to fight for that now. So that's all I'll say for tonight in terms of my personal opinions. I just, again, want to welcome all of you to the Bronx, to Little Italy, and yeah. And so, can you pass me a book? I want to hold up here a book here. We have copies here. They will be available for sign for autographs if people would like. But yeah, so without further ado, let's get started here. This is the Covering Ukraine, the Scott Ritter interviews through the eyes of Anya K. And I want to start off first by just recognizing that this book has been reviewed by some of your favorite people, Judge Napolitano, Garland Nixon, Danny Haifong, Matthew Ho, I didn't even know he was on here too. All kinds of people have read this book, reviewed it, and recommended it. Now, Anya K. herself is an author already. She has lived around the world. She is a very interesting person, and she is the host of a very successful YouTube channel called Through the Eyes of, where she had Scott Ritter, who is a former UN's weapons inspector, who is also the host of Ask the Inspector podcast, and you've seen him on multiple different podcasts as well. But it was through her YouTube channel, through trying to understand the war in Ukraine. What I really respect about Anya is that she's not, a former weapons inspector. She's not even, some kind of like person with security clearance. She's like me. I'm just a person here from the Bronx, who has no business being here, and yet here I am. I want to know as much as she wants to know. And that's why I'm proud to be here. And so I want to pass this off to Anya to kick us off. What was it that got you actually starting the podcast that then inspired the book?
Hello everyone, thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to everyone who is here with us today, because you could be anywhere else, but you've chosen to be here. And to everyone who has purchased the book and who spent your hard-working money, which I also understand how difficult it is nowadays, because you could spend it on anything else, but you've chosen to purchase this book. So from my heart, and I know I speak for Scott as well, thank you so much for the support. I tell you, I was thinking about this because I was expecting this kind of question to be asked. This is a very simple story. When I moved back to Poland from United States, and that was in March 2022, as you remember, the special military operation has started in February 28th, right, Scott? 28th of February 2022. 24th. That was the moment when Polish government allowed Ukrainian refugees to go to Poland and to take care of them. From the moment when the special military operation has started, I was still in the United States, not being an expert in politics at all, having some idea about what is taking place, but not trusting anything the media says. I felt something is just off. Because usually when they criticize one person, here I mean Putin in this case, if someone is that evil, like something is just, no one can be that evil, like everyone agrees he is the most evil, so something is wrong. which no one ever agrees on everything at the same time that much. So I wanted to understand what is taking place. And again, I'm not a military expert, I didn't know about the Maidan in depth. I didn't know what took place there, what led to Maidan, what events were after the World War II that actually kept the Nazis still present in Ukraine. I didn't know any of it. I didn't even know in detail about the Wołyń massacre, even though being Polish, I knew something. But you know, they don't want you to know too much, right? So I'm here and I'm like, something is just not right. And those Ukrainians are coming. And the Ukrainian flags are right next to the European Union flag everywhere. So I'm thinking to myself, what's behind it? Like, what's the agenda? And I started to watch the videos by Patrick Lancaster. And since I was during I call COVID Schmovit, okay? That's my thing. I know everyone has different opinion, but during the Schmovit time, so let me just call it as I want to call it, I woke up to other things they want us to experience. So when I was seeing the Ukrainian people in those videos by Patrick Lancaster being pushed down to the basement by the Ukrainian military, I don't want to curse in English now, but I was like, what is going on? So I understood that this is Ukrainians oppressing those people who are Ukrainians. Well, they are Russian-speaking Ukrainians, or it doesn't matter because they oppress everyone there. And I was like, this is not Russians doing this to them. This is actually their own people having the military there and shooting at them, using them as a target. And I wanted to understand why they are doing this. So, see, I get passionate about it because people are so brainwashed and there is so much lies and they believe in this, and I wanted to know what's going on. So I was researching who is the person to talk to, and I came across Scott Ritter. And I have to tell you, my first interview with Scott was very, I don't know if Scott knows this, but I had like a stage fright in a way, because I didn't know, it was not my genre, it was not my area of strength. I didn't know the vocabulary. I didn't know how to professionally ask the question that my guest will respect me for, that he's not wasting his time. So I tried my best to have this interview. So I was very blessed that I came across someone who, I can say this from really the bottom of my heart, after all those interviews we had together, someone who is a true human being. Okay, so someone who knew that I am not on his level at all of understanding things, yet he gave me his time, he gave me his respect, and he answered all of my questions, and he was always like this. And we continue. That's why you see, and I say this, I don't have a huge audience. There are other channels who have a lot, but for me, I have very special people who watch me, and I feel it, because I feel this connection, and I think we were all learning along the way, and I've learned so much from Scott through those interviews. That's why I kept asking him to come back. If I don't feel comfortable with the guests, or I feel like they are not genuine, or they have other agendas behind it, or they don't want to be even talking to me, I don't continue inviting them. I had situations like this before. And I wanted people, especially being in Poland, well, I'm not sure if I will stay there or not, but I was traveling as well. What I'm trying to say, I wanted to present that situation from the point that none of the Polish media, of course, would present. I receive a lot of hate, not from American viewers or, well, a few from like Ukrainians, but majority was from Polish people. Because they have this mindset, you know, very sad. And there was a moment of switch where Polish people were like, oh my God, I'm talking to Scott Ritter, you know, respect. So now that they listen, and when they listen, maybe they can hear something and maybe they can question things. I don't know, it's a very long answer to your question. But I think at the end of the day, this is real life, and people think we are not affected. We are all affected, okay? If you're not personally affected, like your pocketbook or your wallet or your bank account is not affected, you are energetically affected. Let's face it, you are affected, this way or the other. So I'm very grateful for this collaboration.
Well, that was a pretty good layup. So Scott, you just want to dunk it? Tell me about what it was like starting your podcasting relationship with Anya K and how it's kind of taken its shape from when you started to today.
First of all, again, thank you everybody for coming. It's an honor and privilege to be here tonight with you. I think I'd be remiss to if I didn't point out that this is Plan B. And what a great Plan B it is. Plan A, we were supposed to have this event in downtown Manhattan. And the haters out there who don't like this kind of conversation put pressure on the landlord of the facility, and they shut it down. And this is after we had bought the tickets and got the hotels to bring Anya over, and it looked as if for a moment the New York City venue just wasn't going to happen. And which is okay for Anya, she'd have gotten a straight week-long vacation in New York City. But then this hero over here, Jose Vega, stepped up to the plate, and Jose from the Bronx. I thank Jose and I thank the owners of this establishment and everybody else who came together to make this happen. So again, this is just an example of the kind of community that we have and that we've assembled. I never wanted to be part of a community like this. No offense. I was a Marine Corps officer. And anybody who knows anything about the Marine Corps, you understand what a Marine Corps officer is. And actually, we don't call them Marine Corps officers, we call them officers of Marines, because it's a special breed. We have been given an honor and a privilege to command Marines, the finest specimens of American manhood and womanhood nowadays ever done. Now, that's my propaganda. But the reason I bring it up is that, I'll be honest, to be a Marine, you are indoctrinated. You are a walking, talking machine, propaganda machine. That's why we do what we do, because we're brainwashed. There's the only way we can get it done is to be brainwashed the way we are. That's not a good thing. That's somebody gets it. But the point is, you won't find somebody who is more dedicated to the craft of being an officer of Marines than me. I poured every ounce of my being into being the best officer of Marines I could be. Not just that, but an intelligence officer, which is a completely different breed. Marines are gung-ho, hoorah, charge, in your face, and I'm all that. But then I was told to be a little bit more discreet, show some discretion, and be a little more cerebral, and apply yourself in a way that wasn't as violent as other things, and operate in the shadows. So my entire career in the military, and then later on when I became a weapons inspector with the United Nations, was to be in the shadows, not to be in the forefront. I didn't want you to know who I was. If the fact is, if you knew who I was and what I was doing, I had failed. My job was to be the gray man, to go out and do my job, get the job done, and let the job speak for itself. And the name Scott Ritter was to be known only by those who were involved. And this was who I was. I never sought attention. I never wanted the microphone. I never wanted you to know who I was. I was happy with that life. But then something happened. I became a weapons inspector in Iraq. And as you know, Marines, leadership abhors a vacuum. And when you see a vacuum, a leader steps in. And the United Nations was one giant vacuum, which meant that as we moved on with the job of disarming Iraq, leadership opportunities continuously presented themselves. And because I was a Marine leader, I stepped into the void. And I gravitated to the top, not the very top, because that's political, but I went as high as you can get as a technical operational person, to where by the end of my time, I was running an international intelligence organization that had a scope and scale and breadth of work that rivaled that of any intelligence service in the world. What I was doing in Iraq, we were the premier intelligence organization. We knew more about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction than even the Iraqis did. Well, that's the truth, because they're compartmentalized. And so that person knows this, that person knows this. I made it my job to know everything. And again, I did my job so you would never know who I was. But then I resigned. I made a decision to resign, and I made the decision to resign publicly because I wanted everybody to know about the failure of American policy in Iraq. And suddenly, I became a household name overnight. That is a horrible transition to make for someone who didn't want to make it. First thing that happens is that the media picks your life apart. And fortunately for me, early on, they decided that I was a good guy. And so I was sold as a hero. And I was sold as a true patriot. I mean, I had people calling me up, Donald Rumsfeld calling me a true hero. Casper Weinberger write me love letters. I mean, I got them all in my drawer. It was a heady thing for a guy. But then something happened. The truth became inconvenient. I wouldn't alter the message. The politicians came in and tried to shape what I was trying to say, to politicize it, and I wouldn't play that game. And then the media does what the media does, they turn on you. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I became a flip-flopper. I became inconsistent. Guys, when you have something as complicated as the geopolitics surrounding Iraq and 7 years of history of weapons inspections, to think that it's black and white is to be ignorant. There's many different shades of gray, and the nuances matter, the facts matter, but the media is not about the facts, they're not about the nuances, they're about perception. And if I wasn't playing the game, then I became the bad guy, and then they began the smear campaign. The FBI jumps in, and the next thing you know, I'm no longer the good guy, I'm the bad guy. Which normally would be okay, except I was trying to stop a war. You see, you don't do what I did in Iraq and walk away from that with a clean conscience. When your nation's ready to go to war based upon the work you were doing. Let's be clear, the war was about weapons of mass destruction. We all know the case made to go to war in Iraq. And I was singularly empowered to expose that as a lie. The easy thing for me to do would have been when Paul Wolfowitz sat down across from me and offered me $6 million package to lie, to take the money, lie, and I wouldn't be here today. I'd be in a mansion in the Hamptons enjoying the good life. And I have to tell you, there ain't a day that goes by that I say, you made the wrong move, Ritter. You made the wrong move. Because this is hard. This ain't easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But when you reflect on it, if you look in the mirror and you're not happy about the person looking back at you, then you're a failure. And I'd have taken that $6 million, yeah, I might have a home in the Hamptons. I might not have the debt that I have today. And I might have a different category of friends. I might be vacationing in better locations.
Hanging with the world.
Instead of hanging out in Little Italy in the Bronx, dude, I found the secret to success in life. It is Little Italy, Arthur Street, the Bronx. But my point is, I had no choice because I was an officer of Marines. The Marine Corps trained me to be a man of honor, a man of integrity, a man that doesn't run away from a fight, a man who stands up for the right thing and will fight to the death to ensure that justice is done. And I couldn't walk away from this. And so I poured everything I had into trying to stop a war in Iraq. I literally exhausted myself. I traveled around the world. I mean, I went to the Italian Parliament, the French Parliament, the British Parliament. I went to the Japanese Parliament. I went to the Middle East to try and convince them, everybody, to line up against my government because I believed my government was doing the wrong thing. And I became an enemy of my government. When I went to NATO to brief NATO about the lies told to them about by Wolfowitz and Armitage, the ambassador of NATO, Nick Burns, currently the ambassador of the United States to China, chastised the European ambassadors who dare bring me there, saying Scott Ritter is a known enemy of America. Scott Ritter, a commissioned officer of the United States Marine Corps, who put more on the line in defense of his country than any of these scumbags, is a known enemy of the state. Sandy Berger called me a known enemy of the state. The FBI treated me as a known enemy of the state. This is my government calling me an enemy of the state because I'm trying to tell the truth to stop a war that's going to cost thousands of American service members their lives, maim tens of thousands, and kill millions of Iraqis, and forever change the geopolitical structure of the Middle East. And I took this personally. I was going to succeed. And then my country went to war despite everything I did. And I have to tell you, the depression that came in after that was soul shattering. I blamed myself. I kept asking, what more could I have done? What did I do? Could I have done something differently? Could I have taken a different tactic? Because failure is not something I'm used to. I don't fail very often in life. And this was, in my opinion, an abject failure. And so I disappeared. And I was happy with that. I unplugged. And then you've seen that thing, it's a Godfather 2, Michael Corleone. Every time I try to leave, they reach out and they drag me back in. And,
That's
sort of-
Godfather 3.
3? There you go.
Sorry, Scott.
No problem. Look, I'm in Little Italy. I'm getting the Godfather thing. But the point is, issues started to come up. Iran became an issue. The nuclear program in Iran became an issue. And I started to get involved again. But it's not with the domestic audience. The American domestic audience was happy not to have Scott Ritter on their radar. And I was happy not to be on their radar. I'm starting to appear, though. I'm writing for Al Jazeera. I'm writing for Press TV. RT reaches out. And I'm writing for Le Monde. I'm writing for German newspapers. I'm writing for Japanese newspapers. The international community says, we want to hear what you have to say. But the American community could care less. And then on it goes. And suddenly I became relevant again. And then the government comes in and tears you down again. And I spent 3 years in a Pennsylvania jail for a crime I didn't commit. I came out of prison, and if anybody who's been to prison, you won't understand what I'm talking about unless you've been to prison. When you come out, you have absolutely nothing, and society is dead set against you. You couldn't be more rock bottom than you are when you come out of prison. First of all, you're on probation. So the probation officers control your every existence. What I decided at that point in time is that I wasn't going to quit. I mean, the easy solution would have been to go in the backyard, take a pistol, blow my brains out.
No way.
Easiest solution in the world. It doesn't solve anything. It condemns your wife and your children, your friends and your family to a hell on earth. I had a duty and responsibility to my family to pick myself back up, put myself back on my feet, and get out there and earn a goddamn living so that we could pay the bills, keep our house, keep my kids in college, and look out for the welfare. So I started to do that. And again, I received a wonderful opportunity, an employment opportunity with a company called Energy Intelligence. And basically, Energy Intelligence is a company that is just that. It's an intelligence agency about energy security. And basically the reports they write service all of the CEOs of every major oil company in the world. It's a very elite, exclusive clientele. And I was brought in because of my geopolitical analytical capabilities. And I developed a very good reputation with them. And I was happy as a clam in whale water. Because it's such an exclusive group that nobody on the street knows what I'm doing. I'm writing for people, I'm attending conferences, and I'm succeeding. I'm starting to earn a living and take care of my family, and things are going good. And then the situation in Russia starts clicking up. This is even before, this is with the, this is in like 2020. And I start doing Russian TV, and I start doing Russian podcasts. I didn't understand what a podcast was. I just thought it was a different form of TV. I was very ignorant. Still am, pretty much. But I come on there, and within a year, what I found out is I was wildly popular in Russia. I would do a YouTube broadcast that would have 3, 4, 5 million views.
Wow.
Every Russian knew my name. I wasn't aware of it. And then later, that I went, what the hell is that number? And I mean, the Russians are just like, you're a rock star. And then the invasion happens, the special military operation, and I become more popular in Russia. But then what happened is, because of my Russian popularity, other podcasts would call me up. The Duran called me up. Gonzalo Lira, back when he was doing his thing, had me
Rest
on.
in peace.
Other people, came up, and I started to expand into this podcast, but I didn't understand what was going on. And right about that time, Anya called me up.
You know how I found you actually?
How?
Through Regis Tremblay, and they removed him already.
Regis
Was
Tremblay,
an American who lived in correct? And he had interview. That's how I came across you, and I came across Russell Texas Bentley, who, by the way, when I was in Moscow last summer, I was walking one of the main streets, and there was a very beautiful memorial of those soldiers who died, and there was an image. It's in one of my videos, image of Russell. So that's how I came across Scott actually. But that channel, I forgot his name. I'm sorry.
Tremblay?
Yeah, they removed this YouTube channel. So
Well, but the point is, people started calling me up, and it cascaded. I mean, suddenly it went from I was doing 1 or 2 podcasts a week to I was doing 1 a day, then I was doing 2 a day. And my problem is I can't say no. If somebody calls me up and says, I have a question, if I feel like I can answer the question, then I have a duty and responsibility. That's the intelligence officer in me. If I view everybody as, as the boss, and they call me up and they say, Skipper, here's the problem. And if I don't know it, Andy knows this, I'll say, I don't know. But if I have any insight into it, I'll be more than happy to walk through and talk about it. The next thing I know, I'm doing, good Lord, some days I would have done 8 to 10 hour-long podcasts a day.
Oh.
And this isn't one day, this is day after day after day after day. And it became exhausting, wore me out. And I'm not making a dime doing any of this. My job is to write. I'm a writer. That's how I earn my living, writing. By doing these podcasts, I'm not earning a penny. Then Jeff Norman calls me up. And he says, Scott, we should do our own podcast. And I said, Jeff, I don't want to do a podcast. I'm not a podcaster. I'm a guy who answers questions. Okay, a podcaster is somebody who's out there interviewing other people and doing that. My job is to answer questions. And then we said, well, why don't we do a podcast where you answer questions? and why don't we call it Ask the Inspector?
Yeah.
And so we started that podcast, and it's going on. But let me say this: I'm not a podcaster. Anya is. Anya has a creative spirit. Anya has a way of viewing the world that that lends itself to a certain intellectual approach to understanding the world that she lives in. It's a unique perspective. I answer questions. That's it. And that's where I'm at today, where I'm answering questions. That's why I'm here. But I'm only now realizing the power that we actually have when we do podcasts like this. When somebody told me about 5 million views in Russia, I'm mind blown. I'll go out today, I'll do a podcast with Judge Napolitano, he'll get 600,000 views. I'll go out and do a podcast with Danny Haifong, he'll get 4,500 views. I go on Ask the Inspector, we'll get 12,000 views. So obviously I'm doing something wrong, but that's okay. But the point is, when you look at the family of podcasts that we've developed, people of a like mind with a similar approach, we have the ability now, using podcasts, to bring in, for instance, this video right here tonight. If we handle this properly in terms of who we get it out to and who we stream it, we can have 2, 3, 4, 5 million people watch this video. Ask CNN how many people they're going to get to watch their show. Ask MSNBC how many people they're going to get to watch their show. It's not as much. So I'm in the learning business. I'm trying to learn about podcasting. I'm trying to learn what we're doing. But what I can say is I'm eternally thankful for people like Anya Kay to give me the opportunity to call me up and say, I have a question. And trust me to be the person that can provide the answer. Because that's what I do best. Ask me the question, and I'll do my best to give you the honest answer. But that process doesn't work unless there's people willing to ask the question. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to say this. I'll be very honest with everyone here. I think there are days sometimes when, because for me, I'm a very sensitive person. I'm a strong person, but I'm an empath. So I feel a lot of things, okay? Which is a gift if you know how to balance. Sometimes I feel like, oh my God, those politics, I'm so over it, I can't. It's just the topics, the weight of those topics, the almost nuclear war, right? All of this, and you feel it. You know this is serious stuff. This is not a joke. And sometimes I feel like I don't want to do those interviews. Like I just want to paint paintings and travel the world and just be in nature and maybe have a dog again and just simple life, right? But then, and I mean it really. I feel it. Like something tells me, God, higher self. But look, Anya, this is in Poland now. They are doing this shenanigans here, this there, and I feel I still have to continue ask those questions. I don't know for how long, but I feel like it's not over yet because we are in a very important moment right now, and it's not easy for me sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I'm at the end. Last interviews, I feel like I'm dragging Scott, but he's so polite. It's like, no problem, this day. Like, I feel like almost I'm abusing his presence. I never told you this, but I want to say this because when there is, I tell you guys what it is. Doesn't matter what the industry. At the end of the day, is the main question why people are doing what they are doing, right? Let's just put it this way, and you fill in the blank. I think for this time of my life, God wants me to do this. God wants me to bring people like Scott. Ask the person. I always believe in this. If you have certain issue, you have to go to the source that will provide you the most accurate information. You don't go around. If there is a problem, you go to the person who can explain to you as much as this person knows. You go to the right person for the right answer. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to talk about politics with someone who has no idea about politics. I'm not going to talk about nuclear weapons with someone who never worked with nuclear weapons, who doesn't understand the scale of the danger. They just assume, or they saw a YouTube video, or they have an idea. So it's not easy sometimes, and I know it's not easy for you to connect again and to give another hour, an hour and a half of your time, which you could just sit at home and drink Coca-Cola, for real. No, I mean it, like life. But you do, and I appreciate this. And Scott has been with me almost 3 years on my YouTube channel. And I tell you, there is no other guest when I was thinking about it, because I've traveled a lot. Like, I spent a lot of money from the apartment I sold from my parents. I'm not rich, but I decided to experience, this is one life. Well, there is more probably, but for me, I feel I want to live, I want to travel, and because of it, I go to Russia. Because of this, I want to see how the people are. I want to interact with that nation and see what they are telling us is, and how the reality is. Scott was connecting with me no matter where I was in the world, through so many different countries, and always found time. And I think it's important to ask those questions, and I'm glad you're there to answer them. And I don't know how long I will be asking Scott, but I still have some questions. That's all. Thank you.
All right, so just some housekeeping stuff. We have the room till 9:30, and I didn't anticipate our panelists taking very good answers, but we do want to have a Q&A, and we also do want to have time for people to get their books signed. So I'm going to do one more question, and then we will open up to Q&A just to make sure everybody who wants to ask a question can be accommodated, and people can get their books signed. And the question I have pertains to the actual book itself, the form itself. You have QR codes embedded at the end of these chapters. Can both of you tell me exactly why that was? And we'll start with you, Anya. Why is it that you decided to have QR codes here? Some of these say watch the full interview. Go ahead.
That was actually Scott's idea, which I think is brilliant, because a lot of people like zero attention span, right? So they don't want to read it. But the code, when you scan the code with your phone, it takes you directly to the video when this question was asked. Because the book is not in a, thank you very much. We say order chronological, yeah. It's not in the order, so it's not how the events were taking place, but somehow it actually fell into perfectly, even though it's not in that order. When you go at the end of the chapter, you have the code, you scan the code, and it takes you to the entire interview. In that interview, that particular question of the chapter was asked.
I had been under pressure from my publisher to do a Ukraine book during the conflict. They were getting phone calls from around the world saying, if Scott Ritter did a Ukraine book, we would buy it and all this kind of stuff. The problem was I started a Ukraine book in the summer of 2022, and I got to August, and I called up the publisher and I said, I'm done. I'm not giving you this book. He said, why? It's ready to go. I said, because the situation's too fluid. I'm going to hand you a manuscript, you're going to go to print, and something's going to happen in Ukraine that changes everything, and that book's going to be useless, have no value. And they were dead set against it. Then in September, Ukraine launched its counteroffensive, and everything changed. And the book that I wrote would have become useful for lighting fires, and that's about it. And so they kept pressuring me, saying, a Ukraine book, a Ukraine book, a Ukraine book, a Ukraine book. And one of the problems is I started doing too many podcasts, and I didn't have enough time to actually write a book. Writing a book, for anybody who's done it, and I know you've done it, 6 years. It is a full-time job, and it's brain drain. My father-in-law was a PhD agronomist, and he has written theses and things. And he would tell my wife, because I think my wife and my kids sort of had this thing of, well, when Daddy was a Marine, we knew what Daddy did. He was out there doing things. When he was a weapons inspector, we had an idea what he was doing. But now he's at home on a computer. What's Daddy do? And why is Daddy so tired? And he said to them, the intellectual exercise that goes into writing a book or writing a good article is the most physically draining thing you do. When you get up from the computer, you are literally drained of all life and shaking and weak. And that's just one day. And then you do this. To write a book takes months, sometimes years.
Yes.
And I didn't have the time, but a book needed to be done. So I said, I had done this book back at the beginning of the build up to the Iraq War called War in Iraq with William Rivers Pitt. And what he did is William Rivers Pitt called me up and he interviewed. And we just did a big long interview, and then we turned that interview into a transcript, and we published a book, very thin, slim volume. Guys, that thing sold like hotcakes. 275,000 copies sold in the United States, almost 700,000 copies sold around the world. Now, you're thinking, well, Scott, you're complaining about money, because you're right, man. Had they paid me, that would have been millions of dollars. The problem is 9/11 came, Context Press Publishers went bankrupt. Mine was the only book that made money for them. And when the courts came in and seized the assets, they seized all the money that was supposed to go to me, and I never saw a penny of it. But that was a very successful book. And so I said, why don't we do that? And so we started looking around for authors, or for people to interview me. But the problem is, everybody who was interviewing me thought they were an expert on Ukraine. And so the interview stopped being them asking me a question, and it became more like a debate and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is bullshit. Excuse my language. And then and one day I was getting very frustrated, and then one day I woke up and I said, the book's written. We already wrote the book. The book's done. And I contacted Anya. I said, Anya, we got a book. It's done. We've written the book. All of your interviews with me are the book. We can tell this story from the start to the end. We've already told the story. All I need you to do is go through the interviews, and you pick the best segments of your interviews, and then let's weave that into a book that tells a story. And Anya was a genius. She went out there and she picked it, and she did it. But then my publisher came back and said, well, we need more. So Anya thought she was done. I said, no, we need more. So she went and got more, and I said, Anya, we need more. And so we went, and finally we got to where we were. And this is the book we have. But here's the thing. I read the book, and I said, I know what happened when this magic was made, but the audience doesn't. I know the interview that took place. And you guys have to understand, when Anya interviews me, one of the reasons why I keep going back to her is because she can rip your soul apart. She will ask questions that just get in there, and there's no respect. Anya will sit there and look at you and say, I see that this question's impacted you. And she asks the follow-on question. And next thing you know, I'm crying on her goddamn podcast, and I don't cry. That's how good she is as an interviewer. She's a brilliant interviewer. She understands human beings. And you don't get that by looking at this snippet. And so that's why we made the decision. It was a collective decision to put a QR code at the end of each chapter so that people not only can read this, but they can look at it and they can get the emotion of the moment. Because the other thing is, when you do a book where you're 2 years removed from the interview, the words lack a sense of urgency. But when you're doing, for instance, if we did an interview today about the ceasefire in Gaza, it would be an emotional interview. There would be a lot of emotion in there. You would sense it in the way we're talking. Not necessarily with the words, but even the words would be emotional. But if we wait a year and we do a retrospective reflection on the ceasefire, it'll be a more academic discussion. It will be all this. Every discussion we have is an emotional discussion based upon the immediacy of the moment. But and Anya did a brilliant job of picking the right clips. But even then, you don't get it until you see it. And so that's why we did it. So that's why this book, we call it an exciting foray. That's my publisher into mixed media. But that's what this is. This book This book isn't just a book. This book is a collection of YouTube interviews. This book comes to life when you take your cell phone and you scan in that QR code and you get the interview, and now you have access to the emotion of the moment when the magic was made. This book deserves to get far more attention than it's getting right now. This book is a work of genius. It's the genius of Anya and asking the questions, and it's the luck of me answering the questions. And then it's the genius of the collaboration. This book deserves to be read by everybody. You know, we're moving into the end game in Ukraine. Trump is talking about sitting down with Putin to unravel the Gordian knot that is the Ukraine conflict. Volumes will be written about Ukraine. Volumes are being written about Ukraine. This book beats all those volumes hand down, because this book answers every single question you may have about Ukraine in an approachable way. Why? Because you are her. You are asking the questions that she asks. You're not fake experts. You're not wannabe analysts. You're not somebody trying to make a reputation online as the next Duran. You're human beings that have human questions about a very difficult process, and Anya Kay is a human being who has human questions about a very difficult issue, and she asks these questions, and she probes, and she gets the answers, and she doesn't rest until she gets the answer. She will not accept a bad answer. She will not accept a deflection. She will come back and she will talk, because she wants the answer. She's not trying to make a point. She's not trying to get clicks. She wants a damn answer to the question that comes from the heart. And that's what every person out there today wants when it comes to Ukraine. A damn answer to the question that comes from the heart. And the answers are contained in this book, and it's all because of Anya's hard work.
Thank you, Scott. You're welcome. But because humanity is at stake.
You made some sort of compliment.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to Q&A. I see one hand up, and try to keep your questions short because we need to have time for the book signing. So go ahead, sir.
Hi, I guess I'm gonna direct this at Anya. I'm a little distracted at the moment. Anya.
To me.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I've spent thousands of hours over the last 2.5 years watching what I like to call esoteric online geopolitical programming, which is like you, Judging Freedom, the Duran. And this has changed my life over the last 2.5 years. But one thing, and I'm always a little, I never quite just go along with the flow. I was wondering, 4.9 million children, 5 years of age and younger, die every year of poverty. So I like to call this the poverty super holocaust. Every year, tens of millions of people die of poverty. And I feel if there's a weakness in this orbit of programming that has so affected me and changed me over the last 2.5 years, I think it's the economics aspect, because the only economists I ever see on these programs are Michael Hudson, Jeff Sachs. Jeff Sachs never talks about economics, but Michael Hudson and Richard Wolff, and that's it. And I think if there's a way to up the muscle power, you have to start to deal with the economics, because
I agree.
Because I've never watched one of these programs that I like to watch. I've never seen anyone on any of these programs say 4.9 million children, 5 years in age and younger, die of poverty. I've never seen that mentioned. And I wonder if, and you just said you agree, but how can we bring a more powerful economics punch to this programming that is on the air? Because that's what I would like to somehow contribute to.
Thank you for your question, and I will say this: I didn't know about this number which you just mentioned. What I know.
Sorry, who said that?
what I know as far as what's happening with children, to the children, not just children, it's horrific. And it has nothing to do with poverty, but it has a lot to do with greed, which is the same thing what puts those 4.5 million into poverty, is greed. And as I was on the way here with Scott, I was discussing with my lovely driver and the other gentleman that where is the power? The power is in the financial system, in my opinion. As long as this financial system exists as it exists, and I'm not an expert, again, I think the problem is this. A lot of people feel like we're not going to talk about it, we're not going to ask about it because we are not experts. And this is the wrong approach. Every person has a full right to ask questions, like a child. You don't know, you want to know why the system is set up the way it is. So, do I want to bring more experts? Yes. But again, we all know that this is the financial system that has been going on for a very long time that creates the wars, the conflicts, the poverty, human sacrifice. So what kind of person can I bring that will really address it?
There are none.
I don't know yet. I will come across when I ask. It is given.
I'll find some. I know 6 people in this room that could give you that.
No, you don't. I guarantee you don't.
I guarantee I do.
Alright.
But one more thing. I think there is also, I just want everyone to really, if maybe you agree with me, because I remember during Schmovitz, as I call it, there was a time when a lot of stars, well now they are big time falling, but a lot of idols started to fall down. And that is the same happening with media. But there is a risk that those who now turn off the TV sets, they turn on YouTube channels and they get mesmerized by the YouTubers. And I just really hope that people will still use their common sense and be objective, because what I'm trying to say, when it comes to the money, a lot of people will do a lot of things for the views and for the money. Okay, how much they make from this. Why I'm saying this is because there is also a trap that you can be listening to, like you will be misdirected again, just through different force. Okay, so you have to be, have a state of mind of being alert that one thing is removed that was a lie. But if it's replaced with something else, you still have to question it. You have to question it. You always have to question it. Because if you get in another trap, so we don't have a TV, we have YouTube now, but this is not like that was bad, this is good. You know what I'm saying? You will have to question every interview. Jeffrey Sachs, and I will address it, and this is with all the respect. Many times my viewers say, Anya, why don't you invite Jeffrey Sachs? Because now he's like everywhere and he's respected, this and this. Well, I tell you how I feel. I don't know exactly the facts, but I remember when Poland was going through the economic transition, and I remember who was helping Balcerowicz, this is the name of the person, to create a system that pretty much like, they did this what they did in Soviet Union. So like the corporations took over, they sold for like penny stuff. So I have a mixed feelings, guys, you understand? Like, I feel like if I ask him on my channel, I will ask him, I really appreciate your courage now to speak about what America is doing in the world, but can you explain to me why did you present a certain plan
Exactly.
This is how I am, I'm a regular person. I want to know why did you help the minister, I think he was at the time, Leszek Balcerowicz, to create a plan that sold big part of Polish industry for pennies. This is like the Soviet Union time. Right. And I'm not coming from like angry place, but you see, I asked him just once, maybe he didn't get the email, I don't know. But I didn't ask him that, no, I asked him to be a guest, okay? But I respect the man, what he's doing now, but again, there are many, but that was then, now is this, I don't know. But I would ask him that. Because the way Poland looks now, it's like it would be different,
Yep.
you know? Sorry.
No, Saks is not always
Let me,
cracked up to be.
let me throw a little spin in it, and I'll be quick on this. When I was a weapons inspector in the Soviet Union, during the time of perestroika and glasnost, perestroika is about economic restructuring. I was on the ground in Votkinsk, a defense industry city. I wrote a paper that is the definitive study of defense conversion of the Soviet economy. My reports coming in from Russia got me a classified commendation from the director of the CIA because of the accuracy of the insight into the economic reality that was taking place in the Soviet Union. I have studied the military-industrial complex. I am an analyst who advises the CEOs of every major frickin' oil company in the world about the energy security. And you understand energy security is about the economy. It's about money. It's about how systems work together. And yet, I will go on shows and attempt to answer a question about the economy, and what I'm told is you're not an economist, that you don't know what you're talking about. Leave it to the experts. And that's why you don't get one in, because there are people out there who are experts in the economy, who have lived the life that has a lot of interface with economic realities. But I'm a weapons inspector. I'm a Marine. What the hell? I've been put into a little box. What the hell do I know? And the second I try to answer it, I'm told I don't know what I'm talking about, because what I'm saying doesn't meet the narrow-minded worldview of the person asking the question. I'm not saying that's you. I'm talking about the people out there that are trying to wrestle with these issues. And that's one of the big problems, because here's the kiss of death for a podcast. Anya does it because she loves it. But let me just make an appeal right now. But
That's not the question.
let me put it this way. She's not making a living doing this. She's scraping by. For everybody who's gonna be watching this video right now, and for everybody in this room, when you leave here, support her. Go out there and donate. Why? Because if she doesn't get that support, she can't keep doing what she does. But here's the thing.
I will.
She needs an audience. That's the reality of the just let me finish here, because it's not just about her. It's about everybody. It's about anybody doing this online alternative media thing. If you don't attract an audience, you don't earn a living. And if you don't earn a living, you don't do a podcast. So if you think you like these podcasts, then help the people survive by supporting them. And you support them not only through viewership, but remember, there are certain issues that aren't going to generate viewers. And I will tell you right now, you want to get the lowest goddamn viewership in the history of podcasts, talk economics. Bring in these people and talk that bullshit on your podcast, and your podcast will disappear, because nobody's going to tune in for that stuff. It'll be something that's watched by a narrow segment of society. Now, if you want that, then you have to underwrite it. You have to understand that Anya's not going to get the hundreds of thousands of views she needs to generate whatever the frickin' algorithm is that sends money her direction. You have to send her the money and say, thank you for putting on this show, I'm underwriting it. But that's the reality of the alternative media. We don't have major corporations funding us. We are dependent upon the audience out there. If you like what she's doing, send her some goddamn money.
Thank you, Scott. No, so what amazes me, now if anyone is thinking about YouTube channel and stuff, let me just tell you, what amazes me, I'm like, people were able to pay for the TV, monthly, right? Like a lot of, you pay for the satellite, for the TV, for like 130 channels or something that you don't even know. And they give you some sports channel, but also the game can be set before the game takes over. Right? But they pay for this, and they are fine. But then you go on, for example, I speak from my experience because I don't know. Others, you can check how much they make, there is a system, never mind. So I say to myself, why people even have problem when there are like commercials during my videos, but you watch them for free, man. Like, it's free, it's YouTube, yeah, click on it and just like skip it. And they have problem with commercials. So isn't it interesting that you will pay for the lies for the big pharma advertisements?
If you know.
Right? And, right, But a lot of them, they do know, and they still have TV and they watch YouTube, trust me. So this is amazing to me, like what is the psychology of this person?
And I'll just leave it this, just to show the
No, they
economics.
have problem with the
When I did-
commercials during
when I was
the
doing the
video that
YouTube-
they don't pay at all.
When I was doing the YouTube thing, before I got kicked off of YouTube for telling the truth, we had reached a point in our success that YouTube had an agent reach out to us to talk about taking us to the next step.
Oh.
Right.
You have reached a certain
They never
criteria.
reached to me.
We're working on
I
it.
know.
But one of the
I'm
things
not
they
on the
do
level.
is they say you can do advertising. Now, I thought that was the kiss of death. I thought it was stupid. I said, I rejected advertising for over a half a year because I said no. But then I realized we're working our, excuse my language, asses off.
Yes.
And we're getting pennies.
Yes.
Pennies. And you can't live on pennies. This isn't a freaking
Because
hobby.
they take a big
This is their
part of
job.
it.
They-
do,
yeah. So what they do is they say, do the advertising. So all you have to do is read a 1-minute script somewhere at the show.
I never did that, by the way.
About
we did
your,
it.
about your
We
capital.
did. It doesn't matter. We did it, and the check, literally, the paycheck at the end of the month doubled and tripled in size. And I'm telling you, my wife suddenly said, wow,
Keep on doing this.
we can, because you know how it is when you don't have money, where you take the bills and you go, these are the bills I can pay this paycheck, but these are the bills I can't. These are the bills that ride over, and then you get all the hate calls, you don't answer, you avoid the emails, and then you finally get some money and you pay the bills, but you're always behind. And suddenly my wife's like, we paid all our bills this month. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And yet people hated me because they're like, why are you commercializing it? Guys, it's a tough business out there. It's a tough world out there. Cut people break. I don't know how many times I hear idiots. You say you like Judge Napolitano, but then you condemn him because he reads a 1-minute Lear Capital board thing in there. And you're like, what's he doing? He's sold out. No, he's trying to pay the bills. He's trying to pay the bills. So cut these people some slack. It's the way the thing goes.
I don't condemn them.
When you say you don't get it, you try and run a business where you're not
He
making
was
money.
at Fox for top pay.
What? What?
He was working for Fox for top pay.
Well,
I have a
He
question.
Okay,
was. Come on.
this is not a call and response because we have to stop at 9:10. I got, okay, hold on. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3. So you'll be the second person, you in the back will be the third, you'll be the first. I just wanna, by the way, say, really sucks that I'm the moderator. Very good answer for that question. You know, if I was not if it were the case that I was not the moderator, I would tell you that I have been associated with an organization and for the last 50 years has been talking about exactly what you brought up. When the special military operation started, the French finance minister said they're going to conduct economic nuclear warfare on Russia.
Yep.
And if you want a podcast like that, there's already one every Saturday at 2 o'clock. Go on a TLO show, the LaRouche organization.
Oh.
Well, maybe that's why you haven't found what you wanted. Anyway. All right. But I would only say that if I wasn't the moderator. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Mike. Nice to meet you, Scott and Anya, in person. So, obviously, you know, Putin is the devil everywhere you look, on the left and mostly on the right. So I think that you guys can give the most honest answer. Obviously, the West agitates against Russia for whatever reason. But what would you say is Putin's fault in this whole war in Ukraine, if any? Because he's not a saint. So like, where would you say is the balance or like the gray area in this conflict?
That's a good question.
Vladimir Putin's fault is he wanted peace too much. Vladimir Putin's fault is that in 2014, when they had surrounded the Ukrainian army in the Donbass and were ready to kill the last remaining Ukrainian soldiers who were trying to slaughter the Russian population of the Donbass after declaring an anti-terrorist operation, Putin Putin should have pulled the trigger and killed them all. That's what he should have done. But instead, he received a phone call from Angela Merkel and Francois Hollande, who had received a panic phone call from Poroshenko. They said, please, please, please don't kill those innocent little Ukrainian soldiers. Let them go and let's try and create peace. And Putin said, okay, I'll give peace a chance. And the Minsk Accords came in. Then they spent the next 7 years watching the Germans and the French and the Ukrainians lie to them about wanting peace, but instead preparing for war. Putin should have pulled the trigger a long time ago. Putin shouldn't have initiated a special military operation. It's not a war. It was an operation to give Ukraine a chance to live. They said, we will drive you to the negotiating table so we can come up with a peace agreement, which they did. The Istanbul Communique, ready to rock and roll, end of March. The West said no, and the war continued. But even then, Putin went a little too slow. He kept giving peace a chance. Yeah, Putin's mistake is he tried to make peace instead of war. Putin's mistake was that he was naive. Putin should have killed every one of those son of a bitches, and then we wouldn't be where we're at today. Yep. But that's not who Vladimir Putin is. You see, he's not a Western leader. He's a Russian leader. And that's all the difference in the world.
What can I answer, not being an expert? I will just say from my heart and from my experience. Did I care about Putin before the conflict in Ukraine? Well, the latest part, not really. But when I saw, I wasn't as brainwashed as many of Polish people, let's put it this way. But I wasn't really like, I love Russia, because they don't really want you to like Russia. I was forced to learn Russian at school when I was a child, which is, so you already get this resentment, like they force you. So for me to have this shift, to say, hey, it's actually quite different. What I think is happening right now is exactly what's supposed to happen. Even though it looks like it should be done sooner, I think if we wouldn't have this taking place as it did, many people will not be able to wake up to the truth, to see it, to question it, and to actually, even the BRICS, right? The timing of it. It wasn't as strong just a few years ago. And now there is a shift, there is a change. I think it's because of Putin being a president, and I don't idolize anyone. I just want you to know this, guys. Like, of course, someone I trust a little more than the other, but I just trust God, okay? For real. Do I trust a man completely? Not really. But at the same time, I know if, let's say, Medvedev would be the president now, right? Or someone else, well, this could be absolute disaster because, how much you can hold on to don't press this button, right? Like where is your human strength not to be triggered? Because it's human thing. It's like your ego gets in, right? You get triggered and you react. It's all about reaction really at this point. That's how I think. So you see, I don't like the concept of war at all. I don't think this has been created by humans actually. But humans are the victims, the prey of that. And they use that for their sacrifice. I don't like that there are people dying on both sides, but at the same time, I also know how much at risk Poland is right now and other countries. And if we would have it done sooner, maybe a lot of Polish population wouldn't be at this mental stage right now when they are like, screw it. We are not going to any war. This is not our war. Because they were on a different side before. You understand this? So I'm not saying they like Putin. And to answer your question, they will probably stay with this opinion that Putin is bad. But they don't want to participate in this. Do I think there is a gray side to him? Sometimes I wonder, like when I was in Russia, because most of my guests say, present Putin in a way that like he's not corrupted and he's a good person, like overall, right? Overall, I'm generalizing. But then I had interactions with people in Russia who say, no, you know, he's part of this mafia, or like he knows all these mafia gangsters. So I am not oblivious to some other opinions that are circulating, but I also know that maybe that is also not the truth, because he is actually removing a lot of corruption from the government. So it's you see, I think we will probably never fully know the truth. What I know is that this is what they are doing right now. It's something not easy for Russian people as well. I remember my first trip to Moscow, it was December 2020, so like right the year. And I will never forget, I went to the museum. It's a beautiful museum, guys, if you ever go, and I highly recommend you to, if you feel like you want to travel there, because it's a different reality. It's Romanov's museum, so it's like this old Russia, Romanovs, you know, building. And there was a lady that was working there, and, you know, with my broken Russian, which I didn't practice because, you know, I was like resentful from her. So I went to her, all of a sudden I want to speak Russian now, right? And I went there and I said, you know, like, I wish you peace and love, and she just started to cry, you know, because at the end of the day, this is who we all are, we just want peace, and we really don't want any of this, we don't want the bloodshed, and we don't want the sacrifice. But then what is the option? Like, we're gonna have the Nazis in Ukraine that already are in Poland, FYI.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are at 9:01, 9:10, hard cutoff. I will, if I add you to the queue of people who want to ask questions and we don't get to you, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, I am Amy, and I'm Ms. K on X. Please follow me. I have a question for Scott. If I was President Trump and I could appoint you in any position in my administration, what position would you want me to appoint you in where you feel you do the most good and not starve anymore economically? Like, where could you just like shine and do good, and what position would that be?
Director of Arms Control.
Okay. Short and sweet. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Michal. I'm from northeastern part of Slovakia.
Oh, hello, Slovakia!
All the socialism, I was Ukrainian minority because I'm Lemko, like Carpot or Russian, Ruthenian, whatever it is.
Slavic.
My question is, you already said, Anya, that they are damaged because of the religion for 300 years, then agenda after revolution. How can they forget about volley?
I know.
About the stuff
I
of
know.
the really, even the German officers
Yes.
puked when they were looking what brother to brother did. And how they are looking also for you, sir, the question, I just found out even the President of Czech Republic starting to changing his opinion. Do you think V4 can come back to some political power in this middle Europe, or it's gone already?
No,
because now it's only Poland.
They all gotta go. You know, they all gotta go.
So
Yes.
now Pavel is saying, okay, but how's the situation?
You know what I think? We have to say goodbye to European Union, and I think it will start with Orban and Fico. Sayonara, everybody. No, for real, because if someone leaves, and I'm sure they will, because this is the energy, this is all about energy at this point. So, everyone, and I say it again, do I know all of them by names? God, I don't even want to know all of them by names. They gotta go. Because this is like one party, just like different, chameleon, yeah? Like, that's what it is. And the Polish reality is, you know, it's really disgusting for me sometimes. I don't even want to record those videos because it's just, you feel awful. Like, who is holding this position? Like, what are they doing? It's like imbeciles, you know, like kretyn, debil, idiota.
I'm living here for 30 years and construction, I'm a musician for a Slavic people, we have Dulcimer band, so I meet a lot of Polish people.
Normal people.
There are base Catholics, you know,
Yeah.
and everything, so that's why I just don't get it.
So about Wołyń, just
Yeah,
quickly.
yes, please.
Okay, so like for me even, I don't recall having this in the history classes, to be honest.
No, we didn't
Or
have-
maybe if there was, maybe like the brain didn't
No,
like
we didn't
process
have
it,
it
I don't know.
because you have to understand. That was the problem to explain what the Banderas and Nazism and the
Correct.
Eastern Ukraine, because that was Austrian part of
Yes.
Halic,
Correct.
they were under Germans. you
Yes.
know. Slovakia was under.
And now you have Zelensky talking to, I forgot whatever, doesn't matter, it was anyway directed to Poland, some celebration of something, in your face, standing, Ukrainian flag, Bandera flag.
I understand. that.
Like right behind him, right, okay? But then the thing is, so this is like subconscious programming, one, or this is like, they have no clue what this red and black means really, because like they were not educated. But something has happened because of this situation with the refugees. That topic of Volhynia
It
came
has
up,
to
like
come-
no raise up, you know. So
The
people
DNA.
started to do the research, and they started to push those politicians like exhumation, because you know still no exhumation. Now apparently the latest one, I don't like. They are just. I'm sorry guys, I know, but they are disgusting to me. Like they because they don't stand for the country. Like a lot of those people in power, they have been positioned in this to just fulfill the agenda. All right, that's it. They don't belong to the country. They have no sense of nationality or like belonging to the land. Like you understand? And that's where it all comes down to, because they are like they have their own clique that actually is not even loyal to one another. Like they would kill each other first, to be honest. So I think what will save all of this is the regular people. It's like grassroots movement, and it will fall.
Do you feel something?
I
from
feel
Poland
because-
like that?
Yeah, I mean, look at me. Like, I'm an example of someone who grew up in the country during communism. 1989, I remember they sold Poland, FYI, we know, right? Hey,
Everybody.
I didn't know any of this. I was like, you know, fashion, travel, which is very healthy for your mind, but like you don't know what's going on, which is important if you're a woman, but at the same time, like you better know because this is your life. So now I know a little more, and I'm like, they really, really, really play on us. But humanity is, we are waking up. Slavic people are incredible. Everyone is incredible, but because I'm Slavic, I speak for me. We are incredible. We are incredible, and we are very resilient. We are very resilient, and no matter what shit they throw on us, we still go through. And we're gonna connect, because when I was in Russia, I was afraid to say I'm from Poland sometimes. I was like, they're gonna be like, what, your government is like so crazy. One person just said this. I'm like, I'm so sorry for this ridiculous government. Like, what can I tell you? Like, I hate them too. But the thing is that we connect as human to human. And it doesn't matter in Africa or Russia, we connect. And that's why they don't want us to travel. That's why I have to freaking fly all over to Russia, because I cannot fly like 3 hours and a half or something from Warsaw, forget it. So I have to go like Belgrade or Istanbul or something. But if you want to get there, you will get there. But they don't want you to get there, because when you get there, you're like, hey, what's up? You know, like that's what they are afraid of.
True.
That connection. That's why they cancel the YouTube videos. That's why they don't want artists to interact, like do the
They
thing.
took his passport.
That's why.
True.
Yep.
Well, did you want to add, Scott?
Just real quick.
So-
You asked a question about energy. The European Union will collapse.
Yes.
It's inevitable. It's happening as we speak. And the main reason is that the European Union forgot about the reality of life.
Yes.
I don't want to give you a long answer here. What I'll say is this: sometimes art is the best way to describe things, and movies are art. Some television shows are art. There's a show out there right now called Landman, and it's about a Texas oil man. Now, I know we live in a day and age of concern about climate change and global warming
Kevin
and all that.
Costner? This one? Kevin Costner?
No, Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay. Oh, yeah, okay.
Nice.
And
Good answer.
if you want to learn about the reality of energy security and the role that gas and oil plays in your day-to-day existence, watch that. Europe forgot about that reality.
Yeah.
Europe forgot that at the end of the day, the average European wakes up and they need to turn on the lights, and the electricity has to be affordable. They have to turn on the heat, it has to be affordable. They have to drive in a car, it has to be affordable. You can't build windmills, you can't build solar panels, you can't build anything except maybe nuclear power plants, but nobody wants to build those anymore.
Poland.
That can replace this. And what they've done is they've gone down a path of artificialities where they didn't invest. They're willing to spend 2 to 5%, maybe up to 10% to build a frickin' army to challenge a Russian threat that doesn't exist.
5%
But they
Poland.
won't put that money into building sustainable energy solutions. And so what happens is the people suffer and the people need the energy. The energy's there and they're going to get it. Watch Billy Bob Thornton explain the reality of Texas oil to one of these do-good Washington, D.C. climate change lawyers. And you'll understand that if you don't find a way to put the heat in the house and the electricity into the light bulb, you as a politician are going to get thrown the hell out. And that's going to happen to everybody in the European Union that bought down to this nonsense.
Thank you, Scott. Yes.
I believe it was the, after the Nord Stream had been blown up, it was the great Radislaw
Sikorski, Radosław Sikorski.
Sikorska. He said, "Thank you, USA," after it had been blown up, and then subsequently deleted it. And then Kynan had confronted his wife, Ann Applebaum, at Columbia. Why did he post that? And Ann Applebaum said, it was a joke. Oh, what was the joke? You didn't get it. The joke was on the Europeans. All right.
By the way, you know how many passports he has?
How many?
I heard he had 4, now he has just 3. So he had, I think he's, well, of course, he's actually more American, no offense, but I know there are different Americans, right? So, right, so he is American, he is British, he has Israeli passport, and he has also Polish passport. And he's more American than he's Polish, so, well, it's Kissinger kind of direction. Brzeziński, Kissinger kind of.
So, I have to bring this section of our evening for a close, and I'm going to go to our speakers for very brief closing statements, just because we need time to sign the books and people can get a book. I just, again, want to thank everybody for coming out here. We are here in Little Italy. You go just a few blocks down, that's actually Little Albania.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. That was on my mind. If you want good barek, you just go down the street if they're still open.
But the main point is like far away.
We've got people from Slovakia here, Poland. We're talking about Ukraine. We're talking about Russia. We're talking about Europe here in the Bronx. You know, it's
possible.
But it's beautiful, right? I mean, we've transcended where we are physically, and we're talking about things that are happening in places across oceans, miles away, and yet, because I think everybody here has the power to actually influence the events that are going on. We are not just spectators.
Including Haiti, including Ghana, including Venezuela. It is not just about the white world.
Amen, sister.
I mean, it wasn't said, but that has to be said.
So, I'm going to go first to Scott, and then I'll give Anya the last word. So, Scott?
Freedom of speech is one of the cornerstones that makes the United States of America not the greatest country in the world, but potentially the greatest country in the world. We have so much promise in who we are collectively. We have never lived up to it, but we aspire to be something better. And the only way we can be better is if we engage civilly in informed discussion debate, and dialogue. And that's what happened here tonight. I'm fairly certain, in fact, I'm 100% certain that everybody in this room does not agree on everything. And we saw that in the questions and answers and the give and take, and that's okay, because that's what makes us better, by working through these problems collectively in a civil fashion to have discussion, debate, and dialogue. I want to thank you for coming here tonight and defending the United States of America, defending freedom of speech, defending the principles and values that we aspire to. We haven't reached them. We're imperfect, and we never will be perfect. But as long as we keep trying to be better by working together to come up with peaceful solutions to complicated problems, the world will be a better place to live. And we did something good here tonight, and I want to thank you for coming out and participating.
I don't know what to say. No, I want to say this. In my opinion, it comes to the point when you don't really want to think about any country being better than any other country. I think when we will come to this point, when we will see the beauty in adversity and in honoring, nurturing the strengths and the uniqueness that every country has and what it has to offer. It won't be about dominance anymore, it will be about an exchange of different forms of energies, products, cultures. And that's, I think, to nurture what is the definition of your nation is very important. To honor the tradition is very important. And to do the right thing. And not to, like I said at this table, to be true to yourself and not to shake your head just because everyone is shaking their heads and agreeing to everything because they are agreeing and you feel awkward if you feel different. Because it's not easy sometimes. Like, you know, do you like, guys, this is not easy, like, to be Polish. Now it's a little easier because it's 3 years later and everyone is fed up how much money they spent on the Ukrainian refugees, and they are coming with like brand new Bentley and staying in 5-star hotels and life is good. And now they are waking up, right? Everywhere, right? But and now even the officials from government are talking about it. But it wasn't easy then to have a guest like Scott Ritter, and I'm not trying like, oh, me. No, but it's like objectively. And ask the question and say, I don't support Ukraine, okay? I'm not sorry. I don't support Ukraine. But you still had people in Warsaw until this day walking with credit cards, are you ready? Terminals, in case if you don't have cash to like, you know, support Ukraine. But now people turn around, and before if you didn't support Ukraine, like you were evil or something. It's not easy. So my message is this, and you know this, I mean, you're here, so you know this, but you have to, in order to make any change, you have to have enough courage at least to have a different opinion and express it. And then stand with it. Even if you lose. You lose the money, you lose the views, you lose the support, you lose whatever. But at the end of the day, you don't lose yourself. Yeah. Friendship, yeah, you don't lose yourself. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you everyone. Just give us a minute or two to set up the book signing station, which I guess it will be here. Okay, right here. We'll be right here. So just give us a minute or two. Again, thank you all for coming to the Great Bronx and get your book. So just give us a minute and yeah, thanks again for coming.
Where can I find the thing that you just did?
I'll show you in a minute. Let me sign off. Hey guys. All right.
Let's have the line form over here.
All right, I'll be back tomorrow at my house. Let me see, it's 9:18. I don't know if I have time for. I'd love to continue on the show. Hey, I'm gonna get books for everybody. Moderators, I'm gonna get you all books. I'm gonna see if I can get your name signed on it too. All right, so I'll get your name signed on the books and everything too. Oh, I hate these freaking airplanes. Freaking terrible. All right, guys. It was awesome, for real. All right, I'll see you all tomorrow, same time. ceasefire. I wish we could have done a regular show today. Man, we have a lot to talk about tomorrow. Yes, Rochelle, thank you. All right, everybody. All right, Washington, D.C. this weekend. All right, goodbye, everybody.